Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crosstalk. This is a podcast curated for you guys. We provide a topic, you guys provide questions, and then we do our best to answer and bring it back to the Bible. We are in no way, shape, or form biblical scholars, so if we get anything wrong, it is okay to correct us. We're only human. But today, we not only have our special guest, Miss Mishi Girl, we have a special guest that is the most handsome man I've ever seen. The owner of like a really big company called Home, and the only man I've ever truly loved. It is Mr. Christian Gray Epps. Yeah! Thank you. Okay, guys, so as you can tell, we have completely different outfits because unfortunately it's a completely different day. We filmed an entire podcast and we talked for like 4 hours for you guys' questions.
Maybe not 4 hours. How long?
It was 4.
Was it really?
It was long.
No.
I'm pretty sure.
4. You don't want to lie. This is a faith-based podcast.
Babe, I'm pretty sure it was 4 hours.
If you know anything about Brooke, if you really know Brooke, you probably can't tell this from her YouTube videos, but yeah. Brooke is very loose with any numerical metric.
I'm positive with every numerical metric.
If you ask her what time she got up, you never really know. It's like you got to give everything. It's like within 2 hours either way. She's 2 hours from everything, right?
Yeah, that's pretty true. I'm pretty much 2 hours from everything.
Yeah, the other day you were talking to your mom and you were like, you know, it's great living here because we're 5 minutes from everything. And then your mom was like, well, I still feel like you're the same distance as I am from everything.
It feels like we're 5 minutes from everything. Yeah. It's based off of feeling.
But it's actually like 15 minutes. It's not 5.
If you want to go to the other side of town.
Yeah, to go grocery shopping, though, it's like 15 minutes.
That's the other side of town.
Or going to the gym, it's 15 minutes.
That's the other side of town. I'm pretty sure.
Church is probably 10 minutes.
That's almost 5.
The point is Brooke is, she's not very specific with her time, so.
I'm positive with my time.
I've got to correct her all the time.
I call it positive with my time. I'm a positive thinker. It could be 2 hours. It could be 1. It could be, whatever. Anyways.
On top of that, I'm just going to keep going. I was going to add how you don't have a sense of time either.
Oh, yeah.
How it's like, hey, what time to leave for things. Doesn't have that. Doesn't.
Is this
it's a roast session. It's a Brooke roast session.
What the heck? You're uninvited. You're not a co-host anymore.
Yeah, I'm just like letting out all my resentment.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Anyways, now that he's done with this roast session, we talked for a long time. Let's not even put time on it. We talked for quite a bit. It was a
long time.
See, we filmed our first episode, an entire episode, and we just got straight into the questions aspect of it. We fired off Q&A, and it was honestly so great. I loved the conversations that both Gray and I got to have whenever it came to y'all's questions. But we didn't first start out with laying the foundation of what the season is about, which is dating. We want to dive into what our story was like before meeting each other with our dating life, and then when we met each other, and then whenever we met Christ, and how that transformed our dating life. We want to say just like the highs and lows so that you can just see that we've already been through the hard part, so you don't have to. We've already experienced it, and we just want to express that because going into answering the questions, we don't want you to think we're answering it because, we know everything, we're perfect, we had the perfect relationship, because we didn't, and that would be a lie. And so, yeah, I just want you guys to be able to trust us whenever answering your questions. But you guys will see that footage. It's hours of footage that we went through these questions, and what we're going to do is we're going to divide up the questions where there's one question and our elaborate answer every Tuesday and Thursday for at least a month. And then after that, we're going to be probably just doing Tuesdays because I'm not a psychopath. I'm not going to be able to edit that much. I'm already feeling stressed about the Tuesday, Thursdays with Monday usual videos. But yeah, we won't get into that. That's not what this season's about. This season's about dating. Again, thank you, bebes. We're going to just act like this is the first episode. Thank you for being my co-host. I wouldn't pick anyone else because Gray and I, it feels so cool to be able to like talk to people and kind of pick apart their brains and go back to the gospel each time. So there's no one I would feel more comfortable with to do that.
Yeah, same.
And yeah.
Love talking with you.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this in the intro or the first episode. Maybe this is a part of the same one, but
we're confused. We don't know where the
I don't know what's going together. That's Brooke's job. But Brooke had this idea, you know, for the podcast, and really it was more so a burden from that God had put on her heart, in the sense that she felt this is what God was leading her to do. She didn't necessarily want to. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to start a podcast or do whatever, but I do think that is important to know her desire and mine as well, that we didn't just see this as another medium of media to, you know, hop onto, right? Because that's the hot thing. But I think this is something that God has put on Brooke's heart, and originally it was going to be with her friends. I didn't really know that I was going to be on until like right before we did it. And so now I guess it's our podcast.
You've been forced.
Yeah. Brooke tricked me out. And so I, you know, for myself, never really anticipated being on the podcast. You know, I don't really care necessarily to...
You care?
No, I care. Sorry, let me finish.
I don't really care.
I don't really care necessarily to be like on a podcast to... Wait, why did I say it like that? Podcast?
A podcast?
I don't really care to be on a podcast in the sense of because I just want to talk and I want people to hear me. And so this is something that I feel like is from God. And I do love talking about Jesus. And although there's an abundance of podcasts, too many, as the common joke in all the comments are, they need to make podcast equipment more expensive.
It is expensive. It's very expensive.
Yeah, but obviously not expensive enough because there's too many worthless podcasts out there. And so we're not trying to be that, but we do hope to offer biblical, sound advice. And having said that, I'm not perfect. She's not perfect. In the grand scheme of things, we're relatively new to be following Jesus. So I'm not going to admit that I'm perfect, but I do love God. I love His Word. And I'm going to do my best to give biblical advice that hopefully is helpful to the people that listen. So that's my goal. I know that's Brooke's goal. And we're happy to be here.
Excited to do it. So, Gravy Pants, I previously talked about my testimony and it had little dribbles of like what my dating life was like. Of course, I didn't get into the depths of it and I don't have to. But since I've already talked about it, you could probably get into, you know, how sad and depressed you were before.
You try to say that seriously? I know she's been thinking about that for days.
I've been thinking about it for so long.
That exact line.
And I couldn't execute it. You can talk about how sad and depressed you were before you met me and just get into how awful it was with your dating life.
Yeah, it was really bad, honestly.
Yeah.
Just in bed, crying for 20 years. Crying in bed.
Good.
And then I met Brooke.
I'm kidding. I actually would be really great if that was a real story. But it's not. So, in all seriousness, it made me lose track of what the question was because of how good my joke was.
It was great.
So since I've already laid the foundation of what my life was like before meeting you, what was like your mindset with dating? So like, for example, for me, it was kind of like a freeloading thing. Like I kind of made my decisions on what dating was. You know, my family never sat me down and like explained what it was. It was like high school was my influence of what dating was. So in your opinion, what did that look like? What was that shape like? Because you were the eldest too, so you didn't really have like a sibling to go after. I was
the eldest. Yeah, I think similar to you is I didn't have a framework. It was my understanding of dating was just what I had developed through my experience from the people around me, and my understanding of how it worked in society. But I like you, I'd never had anybody sit me down and like, hey, this is how you should go about this. That wasn't even in my mind. It was just like, literally, I'm attracted to this person, so, are they attracted to me too? Cool, let's be boyfriend and girlfriend, from like real young. And that was basically the same framework as I got older. As I got into middle school, high school, I would have considered myself a Christian. But even then, I mean, that was about it. I considered myself a Christian, but I had zero biblical worldview. I had no idea how that actually played out in my life because I'd never read the Bible. I'd never had someone disciple me in the sense of, hey, this is how we should follow Jesus. My parents took me to church, but they never taught me the Bible. I never saw them read the Bible. I never really saw it lived out. I would have known, like, hey, having sex before marriage is wrong. And so I'm going to wait till I'm married to have sex. That was it. That was basically all I knew is like, hey, you should wait till you're married for that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know why. I didn't know other than like, that's just wrong.
Yeah. I think that's so common. I think so many parents just say like, don't do that, that's wrong. Yeah. But then no explanation.
I mean, my parents never even said that though. That was just developed because, I grew up going to church.
And they said that.
And so, I mean, that's like the big thing. I feel like that's like tied to, if you're vaguely in Christianity, it's like, Jesus died for your sins and don't have sex before you're married.
Yeah. That's like the two billboards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My mom never physically told me it. She just left a book called The Life of Celibacy on my bed one time. And I was like, okay. I get it, I guess.
Yeah, you're like, what is celibacy?
Yeah. I probably, honestly, might have. Okay, so Gray had to have an outfit change because he got so hot. He was burning up.
It's getting hot in here.
He needed a new outfit. Sweater was not the outfit of choice.
But we're back.
We're back with his out of jail free card. I just want to reel it back in to whenever we first met each other, whenever we were in our toxic dating life, and just explain the sucky parts of our dating, because online it looked like this picture perfect thing.
Yeah,
we were just grinding out a bunch of photos, and although they were great times, there had a lot of toxic parts of it that ultimately weren't the best. So let's just go back to when we first met, which everyone thinks is like the most lovey-dovey cute awesome thing, when it ultimately wasn't. So.
Yeah, and I guess it goes to show, social media, show the best parts, just why you need to be careful to who you envy. Back to the beginning. Yeah, I guess I'll just start with, I think both of us had just got out of long relationships. I dated a girl for 4 years and just got out of that relationship. Was playing summer baseball in South Carolina. Brooke and I knew of each other through mutual people and had followed each other on Instagram for years. Once I was single, I was pretty sure Brooke was single. And then we started DMing very, very casually.
Oh, wait. You missed the part out. You DM me.
Huh?
You DM
Oh,
me.
yeah. I slid up on one of her Instagram stories of Benji. If you watch her vlogs, you know who I'm talking about, her nephew.
Which is the way to my heart.
And he was a baby. He was real little. Whenever there was, the filter of, the old man, he had the old man filter on him. Slid up on that. I don't remember what I said. Maybe this is creepy or something. Yeah,
it was actually not really romantic. You said it was creepy. But, it was still in relation to Benji, and so I was like, oh my gosh, he loves Benji.
So that happened. Long story short, we were on a long bus ride. Didn't get back till 5 a.m. in the morning, back to South Carolina from Savannah, Georgia. Literally, we messaged back and forth for that whole time.
Till 5 a.m.
Till 5 a.m.
I had no obligations to stay up whatsoever. But I think I just felt like, I was like, I feel like I need to stay up for this. I feel like this conversation's too good.
Yeah. Brooke had a long time crush on me.
No, I did not.
But yeah, so that was kind of how it initially happened. Once I finished summer ball, went back to Nashville, Tennessee, and Brooke and I went on our first date. It seemed, very good at the beginning, but the reality was neither of us were, from many different fronts, ready for a committed relationship. Mm-hmm. One, we were both out of long-term relationships, like very, very fresh. And so from that front, definitely should not have been pursuing somebody like I was pursuing Brooke, because I knew that I wasn't ready. But although I liked Brooke, I knew I wasn't ready, but selfishly didn't tell her that or didn't communicate that, and wanted her just to be there the whole time for when I was actually ready. And which is super selfish and wrong. Yeah, also wanted to keep, just admittingly, wanted to keep my options open, in case things didn't work out. Although, of all my options, Brooke was my favorite.
That sounds like puke coming out of your mouth.
It does, I know.
I was the favorite option?
It's horrible. But that, unfortunately, was the reality. And which goes to show, again, that was the other front of why I was not ready to be in any kind of committed relationship. Yeah. Because although I knew that was not probably the best thing, I also didn't feel like crazy conviction against, like, now thinking about saying that, that's like horrible, but I do remember, that didn't even like bother me at the time, which kind of, again, displayed just how clueless I was to how dating should work, and how selfish I was, and all those things. Is really what that reveals. At the time, honestly, that was, although it doesn't sound like it, during that period was that year, I believe it was my sophomore year in college, the summer of when we first started talking, was when, for the first time, I had started reading the Bible. And so I was learning more about sin, and I was getting convicted of sin for the first time. So once that happened, I was basically covering up what was on the inside. And so, which led to a lot of sin, more sin than I probably have partaken in, at least more obvious sin, during that period, which is where we started talking.
Horrible mixture.
So there was just a lot going on there that was really bad.
Yeah, and as I told you guys before, my basis for dating was not a really great example of it, and so I lacked communication whenever it came to relationships, and just like all around respect for myself. And so while he was going through this turmoil, I was thinking, oh, this is a fun, like, puzzle to crack, like, how mysterious he's being. And so, like, him not treating me well was like, oh, this is, like, a fun game. And I still pursued it, and I still pushed past it. And, yeah, like, ultimately was, like, going after a guy that was not doing the best things towards me. You know what I mean? Which I'm thankful for in the long run. We're together now, and you're
that's completely different person. That's just by God's grace, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why we're telling this story, and we're telling the bad parts of it, is because it shows how much grace God had on our relationship because of how horrible it was in the beginning. It was so bad.
I mean, hopefully to you guys, and certainly to even us describing about ourselves, it's like we're describing somebody else.
It feels like it.
But yeah, that shows the power of what God has done in our lives. But yeah, so didn't have any idea what that looked like. I was in a rebellious period.
Drank for the first time.
Beginning of our relationship, yeah. I never drank alcohol or anything in high school. During that period, started drinking and partying for the first time.
It's partying.
So weird. I don't know.
Partying.
I mean, what is partying? I don't know. But anyways, yeah. And yeah, drank alcohol, got drunk for the first time. Things like that on like a regular basis on the weekends in college and stuff. All while I remember feeling conviction for these things. Right, this is the first time I'm like actively was sinning, but felt like, oh, this is wrong. And that's because, like I said, I had started reading my Bible the year before and was exposed to so many things that I didn't even know were sin and how serious Jesus was about sin. And so here I am going through this rebellious period, but I know that I'm rebelling. And yet I don't want to go to God, and I don't want to go back to my Bible because I know I'm going to be confronted with my sin, and I want to avoid that. Long story short, that leads to Halloween.
Yes.
Right? Is it the night?
That is the turning point of like when I saw things change. It was October 31st, 2019. I was dressed up as a butterfly. I was helping Gray puke because we went to a party or whatever. And after he was puking, like I could see a weird change in his eye, and it wasn't because he felt sick. It wasn't because he just puked in the toilet. It was just like shame. Looking back on it, I think it's like conviction that you finally realized. But at that moment, I was like, why is he being weird? Why is he acting weird? Why isn't he talking? I was trying to be like, are you okay? But you just were like staring off into the distance, thinking. And ultimately, what was your mind thinking?
Well, I mean, after that point, I mean, I don't necessarily remember what I was thinking at that moment.
Okay.
But I know, like, the next morning, it was like, I had made the decision that that was it. You know, like I was done rebelling against God, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, literally from that night was the last time I ever was living an active rebellion to God. It was like that was the last time. Mm-hmm. From there, honestly, is when everything flipped. I started going back to God, reading my word again. Brooke and I were sinfully intimate outside of marriage.
Is that what I would just say that?
Huh?
Is that what I would just say that?
Wait.
Sinfully intimate. Simply intimate.
I don't know how old people are listening.
I know, true, yeah.
And so, yeah, there was a point there where I was like, hey, that's not going to be happening anymore. And Brooke didn't have the best reaction to that.
It wasn't like I was like, why? You know, I wasn't like stomping my feet and getting angry, but I think because of past sin done against me, that was the only interpretation or like level. It was the only gauge of how much somebody liked me.
Yeah. So whenever I told Brooke that was, wasn't going to be happening anymore, although she probably wouldn't have verbally said this, subconsciously what she was thinking is, oh, so you don't love me or care about me since you don't want to do this. And that must mean if I'm not able to do this, then I'm not of value.
And I also just thought you just didn't like me. Like, I immediately thought you didn't like me and you weren't attracted to me.
Yeah.
Because that's what the world makes you associate those things with.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and so from there was just a progression of, honestly, God just changing my life in a lot of ways as more of those things were being cut out, and I started to just grow closer to Him and wanting to be more like Him and be obedient to Him. As months go by and I continue to progress in this direction, I start to realize that although Brooke said she was a Christian, I was like, I don't know if she actually is. And just to clarify, being a Christian isn't just something you identify as. Jesus says that you have to be born again. You have to be made new in order to actually be a true Christian. And so it's not just a title, but if there's no fruit in your life, there's no evidence in your life, then that's evidence that you're not actually of God, you're not actually a Christian. And so God changed me and my desire started to change, I started being able to see the difference between what it looked like to be a Christian and what it didn't look like. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know if this is Brooke.
And that part was a little bit scary for me because as blunt as you are, you brought those up. So like very, very bluntly. It was very straight to the point. It was like, I remember one time, like we looked in a Bible, we looked in the Bible first. We were studying the Bible together, and it was the part in the Bible where it was like
Parable of the seeds.
the parable of the sower or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was how seeds were in all different locations. It was in rocky soil. It was in good soil. There was a place with a bunch of birds and a place with a bunch of thorns. And all of these were metaphors for how someone's faith developed. So like for the thorns, it's someone who received it, but the world was more enticing. Birds is whenever they hear the word, but does not understand it. So like outside sources kind of are more appealing. For good soil, this is the one that hears the word and they completely understand it. And then they have fruit. For rocky soil, it's for someone that hears it, receives it with joy, but whenever trials and tribulations happen, they're swayed back and forth. So therefore, it just gets
There's no
out.
roots. There's no roots.
There's no roots. And Gray was like, "So which one do you think you are?" And I was like, "Good soil." And he was like, "I think you're on rocky ground." He told me that. And I remember I was really angry.
Yeah, you got really mad.
I was infuriated, but kind of rightly so. Like, wouldn't you say I was...
Yeah, definitely. I would not do that today.
I was so right for being mad in that scenario because...
Yeah, even though I was right.
even though he was 100% right, that was the attitude that Gray had from then on. He was like, I love you so much that I want to tell you immediately all of these answers.
I was fearful that if Brooke wasn't a Christian and she didn't actually change, that it wasn't going to work out. And I knew that. Like, I knew that as my life was changing, I knew if Brooke's wasn't going to as well, that it definitely wasn't going to work out. And so that fear led to control in the sense of, like, I wanted to control the situation. In other words, I tried to be the Holy Spirit. It came out in ways like that, where it was like trying to force something to happen. Like, don't you see you're not actually a Christian? And, why aren't you doing these things? I read all the time and I like to read. Why aren't you reading your Bible? I'm listening to sermons because I want to listen to sermons. Why aren't you doing that?
Yeah.
So it became, I tried to be the Holy Spirit out of fear instead of just praying for her and being an example and loving her, which led to hurting Brooke, which, took us years to work through.
Because it was a straight year of just that bluntness.
Yeah.
Was it a year? I think it was a year.
I don't know how long it was, but...
It was a while of the bluntness to even, like, finally take a step back and realize, hey, if she were to be saved, those words are not going to, like, help it, obviously. And so with him, like, slowly realizing it, it wasn't allowing me to be, like, super merciful towards Gray. I was actually very angry towards Gray. And so I kind of sought my own relationship with God on my own. I, like, went to my own different small group. I read on my own, not in front of him, like, on purpose. And anytime he brought up God, it, like, made me mad.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what put me on that journey of debunking the Bible and debunking who God was. Like, I just wanted my old Gray back that I wasn't receiving then. Like, I wanted the old person that I met in the beginning that I really liked.
When there wasn't anything getting in our way.
Yes. Yeah, of just, like, continuing how happy I felt, even though it was toxic in the beginning. Like, I don't know what I was holding on to whenever it was so toxic in the beginning.
I mean, it wasn't good, but, I mean, it seemed like, we loved each other.
Yeah.
It was like that emotion, at least.
Through that, it made you fearful. It made you cling on more. And then through that, I pushed away. I had my own relationship type of thing. And then what happened after that?
Long story short is, despite me handling it in a poor way, God still ended up truly saving Brooke by his grace, submitted to him and genuinely desired to follow him. There was still years of working through that, me learning how to handle discussions and disagreements about certain things in the Bible and things like that.
And honestly, me, like, learning how to not be prideful in those arguments too, because since you were so harsh in the beginning, it made me not want to see your point at all. Like, I never wanted to, like, say you were right ever. Like, I wanted you to always be wrong. And so we kind of had to work on both sides of that, like, confrontation.
Yeah. It just took a long time of working through, and we were long distance for 3 years, which added to our length of dating. Even beyond that, I think part of the reason we dated so long is just working through a lot of that stuff. And I also, I think, held on to, like, wanting Brooke to be perfect, in some ways. That was another thing, I think, waiting until you were perfect every spot or whatever. Fast forward, by God's grace, he just gives us clarity, basically through a conversation of someone asking this question, and us just talking about it, it was like we both had the feeling at the same time of peace in us getting married.
And this was years after we'd healed, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically all of this that we just summed up is like 5 years. 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. The first and second year were the bad parts, and then the 3 other years were good, right?
Yeah, I think we were Christians in the 3 other years.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're still working through a lot of junk. And then God gives us confirmation, peace, to get married, and literally the next day, someone sent us the house that we're in now. We weren't even looking for houses.
It was our first ever house we looked at.
Yeah, and then God just blessed us, like, literally right away. So, all of that, and now we're married for almost a year, literally, in like a week.
We're going to the Cascade Mountains for our anniversary.
Going to Washington, yes.
What?
Here we are, happily married.
Yeah.
And it's great, and I love Brooke more every day. She's my best friend. I love being around her. And following Jesus together. It's the best. Marriage is awesome, and it's all because of God's grace. And so...
Yeah, so whenever we say that about our relationship, like we emphasize God's grace, those are all the times that we mean that. And so in summary, even though this sounds like a really sad story, it's actually a great example of how powerful the gospel is. Gray and I were obviously really bad to each other. I wasn't perfect either. I had a really messy past as well. Ultimately, Gray and I were completely made new. Like, we are completely different people now, and it's not because of a behavior change and because of what we did. It's because of the Spirit of Jesus Christ. You know, he was the one that was redemptive. He poured his blood out on the cross and bore our sins that ultimately we deserved. So therefore, we were made new by his blood. It completely transformed the way that we looked at the world, the way that we looked at ourselves, the way that we looked at each other and how we treated each other. And we tell you guys this story not to be like, oh, look at us, we made it through this hard story and we're better because of it, and so you guys should do the same too. We're telling you this to show you the stark difference of when we loved and knew Christ and when we didn't love and know Christ. And it was so much harder when we didn't love and know Christ. And so that is why most of our questions that we'll be answering moving forward is going to be rooted back in Christ, because that's what saved our lives and saved our relationship as well.
And just to be transparent in the sense of we understand and can sympathize with wherever you're at. And we're still not perfect, and we're far from it. But we've been even further from being perfect in the past. And so any advice that we give is not from a place of judgment or, like Brooke said, that we think we're better than you in any way. But it's because we've seen both ends of the spectrum. And following Jesus, being obedient to him, knowing him, loving him is the best. Not just, like I say it all the time, you'll probably hear me say it a lot on this podcast. It's not just the right way, it's the best way.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening to our sad but lovely story, only because of Jesus. We are so excited to be able to start this season out of dating. Our next episode is going to be a question about how to ask a guy to wait for marriage, which is a juicy one. Really fun to listen to.
Got a lot to say about that.
Can't wait to see you Thursday. So, bye guys.
It's pretty good.
You do it.
I can't do that.
Fart noise.
Silent part, ready? Pretty accurate. Whoa.
Is that fun?
That's weird.
My name is Brooke Epps, and I like gray Epps.
Please stop. Please don't do that again.
I like this man right here. And I would do many things to this man.
Okay. You're breasting.
The breast.
You're breasting.
Oh.